Today, we're diving into a really powerful story. It's actually a children's book, but it gives us this incredible window into American history, all through the eyes of a little boy on his very first train ride.
And that question right there, that's really the heart of it all. It's about a journey that starts with just pure excitement, a dream come true. But it ends with a question about fairness that honestly no kid should ever have to ask.
So let's set the scene. We're in rural Alabama, and we meet our main character, a young boy named Michael. For him, the sound of a train rumbling by isn't just noise. Nope, it's the sound of possibility, a promise of a huge world way beyond his family's farm. Michael and his granddaddy, they had this little ritual. The second they'd hear that distant rumble, they'd stop whatever they were doing in the fields, stand together, and just watch this metal giant thunder past. They'd imagine all the incredible, faraway places it was going. To Michael, that train was pure magic. And then, you guessed it, one day it happened. The dream became real. Michael was actually going on his first ever train ride, all the way to Ohio to see his cousins. I mean, can you imagine the excitement? The biggest adventure of his entire life was about to kick off.
But this is where the dream starts to bump up against reality, because it turns out it's not quite so simple. Boarding this amazing machine, well, it came with a very specific set of instructions, unspoken rules that Michael was about to learn for the very first time. So picture this. They get to the busy, loud station, and Michael and his grandma do exactly what they're told. They follow the conductor's directions, and he points them to one particular car, the one with a sign on it that said, "Colored only." That was their spot. Okay, so it's really important to understand what's going on here. This was the era of segregation. There were all these laws and customs, often called Jim Crow laws, that were designed to keep Black and white Americans separate. And here's the really confusing part. The rules weren't the same everywhere. They could literally change from one town to the next, one state to the next, and that little detail is going to be crucial for Michael's trip. But then the story takes this really hopeful turn. As the train keeps moving after it leaves a city called Atlanta, the whole rigid system that started the trip, it just starts to melt away.
So on this train, you've basically got two different worlds rolling down the same track. You've got Michael in his colored-only car, and then somewhere else on the train, there's another boy named Bobby Ray in the whites-only car. Same journey, same rules, but totally separate. And this is the moment everything pivots. As the train rolls out of Atlanta, the conductor does something amazing. He just walks through the car and takes the signs down. The physical things that kept people apart, they're suddenly gone, just like that. And with those signs gone, this little boy, Bobby Ray, comes running into Michael's car. And in that instant, a friendship just sparks. To them, there's no difference. It's just another kid to play with. They start racing through the train cars together, laughing and exploring a world where, for a little while, those signs just don't exist. And now we're coming up on the climax of the story. This is the moment where that pure, innocent joy of their new friendship slams right into the confusing, messy rules of the world outside their little train car bubble. Their friendship really had its own little journey, didn't it? It started right after Atlanta. It blossomed while the train was moving. But as they get close to the next big stop, they cross some kind of invisible line. The conductor yells out, "Chattanooga!" and everything changes in a heartbeat. With no explanation at all, the conductor just takes Michael by the arm and walks him back to his grandma's side. The game is over, their friendship is cut short, not because they wanted it to end, but because an adult was enforcing a rule that, to a kid, makes absolutely no sense. So the train makes it to Ohio. The trip is officially over. But the most important part of the journey is the one that's just getting started inside Michael's head. He's left with this deep, profound confusion and this feeling of a baffling injustice. And this leads to the one question that just hangs in the air. He asks his grandma, how? How could the rules just completely change from one place to the next? Why was it okay to be friends with Bobby Ray one minute but not the next? How could something be so unfair? And of course, his grandma doesn't have an easy answer for him. What makes this story hit so hard is knowing that it's true. It's based on the author Michael Bandy's own childhood. So it's this beautiful, hopeful story about friendship, but it's also a very clear-eyed look at a really dark time in American history, a time whose echoes we are absolutely still dealing with today. And that kind of leaves us with this final thought. Michael's confusion, it just perfectly highlights how absurd and illogical injustice really is, because it's seen from the most honest perspective there is, a child's. It makes you wonder, what can a simple question about fairness really teach us about the complicated history of a whole nation, and where we go from here?